What's a stupid thing you've done that you still think WTF did I do that for? Part 5. Messing around after work. One day I grabbed a couple of little picture holders we sold. They were on a spring attached to a suction pad. I promptly stuck them on my forehead like a couple of antennae. Thought it was hilarious and got a few laughs. Unfortunately, when I eventually removed them, the suction had given me 2 fabulous hickeys right on my forehead. Early noughties fashion dictated I had a few bandanas in my possession, so I used them as a disguise. Looking like a wannabe gangster, I have never been so self-aware in lectures. I was in a rush to get into a shop before it closed. It already had, but I didn't realize, and crashed into the closed glass door. Large bump and bruise on forehead and nose. My pride was hurt too. My partner was looking out at our garden through the French doors in our living room. I then caught her trying to zoom in on the contents of some hanging baskets by putting her fingers on the door glass and doing the swipe out, an enlarged thing with her fingers. A bit outing if any of my friends and family are reading, but as a young teenager, I was annoyed to find that Debro had finished the Rice Krispies. I tried to make my own by putting a bowl of dry rice in the microwave, on the logic that it would be just like popcorn. It was not. Tongue of flame leapt up from the superheated grains, and the microwave was irreparable. Wintry weather, getting dark. XH threw a stick in the raging, flooding, cold river for the dog. She fetched it, but couldn't get back to the bank. He jumps in the river to rescue her. I jump in the river to rescue him. 3DC left on the riverbank, screaming. Dog calmly lets herself drift down to a safe place and gets out. DC grab her, and they go back to the car. XH and I follow, eventually squelching, deeply ashamed. I'd always told the DC never, ever to enter the river to help the dog. The first and only time the dog needed help, yep, in we leap without a second thought. Mortifying. Twice, I have bitten my finger when it snuck inside a baguette. Grin, it hurts a lot. I have also fully brushed my teeth with Savlon while staying at my parents'. I was thinking, Dad's toothpaste is disgusting. When I was 14, boy dared me to take an E on the bus to school. I stupidly did, except it wasn't an E. It turned out it was a sleeping pill. I fell asleep in science. No one could wake me. The boy thought I was dying and confessed. The school rang my dad, who carried me out of school to much hilarity. I eventually woke to a world of trouble. In the summer, when I was 15, I was hanging around on a bench with my friend. My parents were away, and she'd been staying at mine. A car of men in their 20s pulled up and chatted for a bit, then asked if we wanted to go to a city 2 hours away. We said yes and hopped in. We went to a flat and got off our faces with them. They took us clubbing, then drove us home. We had a great time, but it dawned on us the next day that it could have been the worst decision we'd ever made. Last year, I bought a julienne peeler and decided to run my thumb over it as it didn't look sharp. It was imperfectly julienned my thumb. I didn't notice that a bus had come to the end of its route. The route had shortened and changed. The driver didn't see me and proceeded to drive off to a depot. It was a double-decker, so I went downstairs, sat down in a prominent position, and hoped he would see me. I didn't want to startle him and make him crash, as he was going really fast on a dual carriageway type road. He eventually saw me and was furious, dumped me out absolutely miles from where I needed to be, and I spent a couple of hours walking to where I could find a tube. It was when the Olympic site was being built in Stratford, so no maps were accurate. Also have twice got on completely the wrong train. The first time, I was 17 and heading to Manchester. I ended up in Leighton Buzzard. The second time, I was supposed to be going home and ended up at a seaside resort an hour's drive away. I had my DC with me. I'm loving this thread. At work, the caretaker had lifted a cover off a drain. I walked across the room reading a book, and one leg went down. Luckily, only scraped and bruised my leg. Colleague was in the room. I leapt up and claimed I was fine. My leg really hurt, and my pride was dented. I still have a scar on my knee. At work, I ran down the fancy atrium stairs while wearing high heels, caught my heel on a step, and crashed down the stairs in a heap. Highly embarrassed, I assured my concerned colleagues that I was okay, while crying from the pain. Nothing was broken, but I had an enormous bruise on my bum and a swollen ankle for a while. Hope you are enjoying today's video from Mother's Narrative Network. Please like, comment and subscribe for more daily uploads. Don't forget to click the notification bell. When I was a kid, I had a battered old bike. The front mudguard had been getting increasingly loose in the preceding weeks. Whilst pedaling down the road at speed, I noticed it was now hanging off by one screw, and reached down to jam it in place, came off in my hand. Wondered if it would snap if I put it through the spokes. It didn't. Fat lip and squashed nose ensued. I was looking at my phone and walked in front of a bus. Luckily, the driver was on the ball enough to stop, but I can't believe how stupid I was. I lie awake thinking about how that could have been it for me. I won't ever do that again, though, so every cloud and all that. I was coming out of a shop once after buying a sandwich that I was carrying. I tripped and fell over. So desperate not to drop my sandwich, I didn't use my hands and ended up hitting my head on the pavement. My sandwich was fine, but I was a bruised mess. I have found my people. Too many to remember, but yes to draining food and then throwing in bin, locking myself out, taking tray out of oven with glove and then taking the other tray out with bare hand. Was in a rush once and ironed clothes to be worn whilst I was wearing just my underwear. Stood too close to ironing board and burnt my stomach. Wanted to see how sharp my new knife was, so I ran it along my finger. The stuff I was mixing had all gone up the walls of the electric mixing bowl. So I pushed a wooden spoon down the pipe thing on top of the bowl while the mixer is still going. It was the most stupid possible thing. The spoon and bowl exploded into flying shards. I still marvel I didn't lose an eye. Totally outing. I slammed my own head in the car door. It was a horrible, wet, windy day, the type where the rain was being blasted horizontally. I had sort of dipped my head inside the door to get my bag out. I'm shutting the door. I somehow was still thinking must shield from this horrible rain, and proceeded to slam the door shut on myself. It was sore. I don't know if anyone saw me, but I didn't help myself really when I walked into work and said, "You'll never guess what I just did." My husband's apprentice needed to drill a hole in a plank of wood. He braced it against his thigh. My husband didn't get to him in time, and he drilled into his thigh, only noticing when a big ribbon of flesh came whirling out. I picture it in my mind disturbingly often. Oh, I've got another one. I was walking home from my friends. I was 16. Beautiful, hot, sunny, glorious day. Wearing tight pink trousers and white t-shirt. Thought I lipped the bomb. And I did grin. Heard lots of commotion coming from across the road. Lots of young guys in a house watching football or something. Noticed some had their tops off. Was admiring the view when I walked into a lamp post. Guys totally seen it, and I could still hear them roaring with laughter when I got to the bottom of the street, my face and trousers matching colors. Not long after passing my driving test, I went out in my little old banger down the motorway. Started to panic when it wouldn't go above 30 miles per hour with my foot to the floor. People were honking me, and looking in my rear-view mirror, I could see a trail of smoke behind me. Finally made it to a petrol station and pulled over. Went to put the handbrake on and realized I hadn't taken it off. When I was about 6 months pregnant, I had to have a fasting blood test. After the first blood test, I had to drink this liquid and was told to return a few hours later. I thought it was a good idea to walk uphill to the shops heavily pregnant and on an empty stomach. I ended fainting in Waterstones and they called an ambulance to take me back to the hospital. I was so embarrassed. A long time ago now, but I was minding my parents' home whilst they were away for a 6-week break. I was single, so I moved in with the dogs. They'd had a new in-soup done, and a few days before they were due home, I cleaned the house, top to bottom. Washed the taps with Cif or Jif, it was then. When they got home, I got a distress call from my mum who said all the gold had come off the taps in the in-suit. No one told me they were so fragile and couldn't be cleaned with any box standard cleaner. So, 10 taps to be replaced. Double basin, bidet, bath with loads of knobs, toilet handle. I once climbed a wall which had a sign saying anti-climbing paint in use. I felt like I had to know what anti-climbing paint is. I certainly found out. Had an irritating sinus infection that made me constantly want to sneeze, but it would never quite happen. In frustration, I decided to force a sneeze by inhaling pepper. Jesus. It burned like hell. My face went tomato red. I was sweating and my eyes were streaming for 20 minutes, and I still didn't bloody sneeze. So many things, I wouldn't know where to start. Having staring into the sun competitions as a child in the tropics and developing cataracts probably has to be the most stupid thing. Left it a bit late to pick up son from after-school activity and couldn't find anywhere to parked in a spot that had a dropped curb and a car parked behind it, but I think also had a slightly faded parking spot marked alongside it. So I wondered if it might not be an official driveway. Some aren't around here, and anyway I'd only be a few minutes. Came back to a neighbor glaring at me, telling me the person in the house was a doctor and could have been on call, and what was I thinking blocking them in? I felt so ashamed and like such a cunt. I was terrified that he'd taken a photo and I was going to appear on some name and shame website or be reported to the school, and I toyed with delivering a card and flowers to the doctor's house with fulsome apologies. Then I realized I'd just have to live with the fact that some strangers might assume on the basis of my actions that I was a selfish bitch. And I'd have to live with that and not draw it out anymore. Not that long ago, I was a fully grown adult, visiting a petting farm and in the goat enclosure. One young lop-eared goat V-sweet was making lots of eye contact. I petted it and it sort of suckled my finger, so I wiggled my finger onto its tooth as I was curious how they felt. Thought to self, I should be careful I don't get bitten. Then Ari inserted my finger to feel the goat's flat ridged molar, and quite reasonably, the goat thought food and started chewing. Very painful and bloody finger resulted. My OH was incredulous. I would risk doing it a second time. Bought one of those home leg waxing kits. Put the jar of wax in the microwave to melt, took it out and promptly dropped it on the tiled floor. It smashed. Shards of glass and hot wax cut and burnt my leg. What's worse, I didn't have anything on my feet, so I had to tiptoe out of the kitchen to get some slippers. Scraping glass shards encased in rapidly cooling wax off a tiled floor is not easy. When I was about 14, I was chewing gum in the bath, as you do. For some reason, I decided to see what would happen if I took the gum out of my mouth and put it on my pubic hair. It got stuck, that's what happened, and it was very painful trying to cut it out. Not me but my mum. Walking into the supermarket together past one of those join the AA type stands. Man says, "Have you thought of joining, madam?" Instead of simply saying no thanks, I don't drive for some reason. My mum panics and says, "Oh no me no drivey," and carries on into Sainsbury's, leaving me and the poor AA man looking at each other. Tesco in town. The up escalator was broke, so they switched the down one to go up instead. I didn't notice this and got on the usual down escalator, only to be catapulted back up and land sprawled on my ass at the top. I ripped out my nipple piercing whilst closing or opening the shower door. When I was a kid, I was running about outside my flats and fell in a tiny manhole and had to be rescued by the fire brigade. I chopped the end off my thumb last year. My first thought was, glad I'm not doing onions. I wouldn't be able to tell which bit was skin. I have millions more, but I need to engage my brain. I had a fad for growing my own chilies and making my own sauce. I even got Carolina Reapers to grow, which was good. Made a very potent sauce. Here's the thing. If you're handling the hottest known to man chilies, you really should wear gloves. Even if you think you've washed your hands properly, it lingers. As I discovered when I went to empty my moon cup, DH used hand sanitizer and then put his contact lenses in. I didn't know he could scream in such a high pitch. This resonates with me. My DS was 11 at the time and had arrived back from year 6 camp with suspected scabies. I know, hideous, right? Our GP had prescribed us large tubes of ointment to slather all over the poor little sod every night. Couple of drinks with my sister next evening. DS needs the cream on. I picked it up the medicine cabinet, started slathering it in him. DS said it's not the right cream. I state I know best. Turns out it was Anusol. I still mention it now he's an adult, because he can be a big asshole still. When I was about 16, I went out with my friends and the boy I was seeing to a teen dance club. He got up on a wooden dance podium, but it collapsed and he got taken to hospital with injuries. One of the bouncers came over to ask me if I was okay, as I was a bit shaken up as it partially collapsed on me too, and said he needed to take an incident report. We went to an office where I told him what happened and he gave me a glass of water. After he took the report, we went to leave the office, and I really don't know why, but I decided to grab his hand and hold it, and I didn't let go. For about half an hour he walked round the disco, continuing his duties with me holding his hand like a child. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Before you go, please like, comment, and subscribe for more daily uploads. Don't forget to click the notification bell.